You know, there's something that science still can't fully explain. How does one person, one completely ordinary human being from Daegu, South Korea, manage to make millions of people around the world fall in love with him? Not just ARMY. Not just K-pop fans. But stay-at-home moms in Brazil. Middle-aged men in Turkey. Teenagers in Nigeria. Fashion designers in Paris. Even people who swore up and down they would never get into K-pop. Who is he? Kim Taehyung, known to the rest of the world as V. And today, we're not just talking about why Taehyung is popular. We're going somewhere deeper than that. We're talking about why people who never planned on becoming fans end up completely unable to stop thinking about him. This isn't about hype. This isn't about algorithms. This is about something far rarer than either of those things. Let's get into it. Okay, let's be honest right from the start. The first thing people notice about Taehyung, yes, it's his face. But wait, don't close the video yet. Because this isn't just about he's handsome. If that were the whole story, there are thousands of other idols we could be talking about right now. Some taller. Some with sharper jawlines. Some with smiles just as warm. But Taehyung has something different. Something incredibly hard to describe with words, but the second you see it, you feel it immediately. His face has this natural duality that's almost impossible to manufacture. In one moment, he looks like a sculpture you'd find in a Renaissance museum, serious, deep, almost cold. Sharp gaze. Strong jaw. You feel like you're standing in front of a 17th century painting. Then 3 seconds later, he smiles. And all of that just collapses. Suddenly he's sunshine. Warm, bright, and for some reason your chest feels lighter without you even realizing it. Beauty experts, professional photographers, even AI platforms that analyze facial symmetry have consistently placed Taehyung among the most proportionally balanced faces ever studied. But honestly, that's not why people sit and stare at him for hours. What keeps people looking is his expressiveness. Taehyung doesn't have a flat face. Every single emotion he feels reads immediately across his features. Happy? You know. Nervous? You know. Bored? You know, and somehow that's more endearing than anything else. He never learned how to look cool for the camera. He just exists. And for some reason, that always works better than anything deliberately crafted. There's a quote that went viral on Twitter once. Someone wrote, "Taehyung doesn't try to be unforgettable. He just exists, and you can't forget him." And the more you get to know him, the more you realize that's not an exaggeration. It's just accurate. Now this is the part that genuinely amazes me the most. And it's also the part that surprises people the most when they first really start paying attention to who Taehyung is. He is a real artist. Not in the way brands throw that word around as a marketing label. Not in the casual sense of, oh, he has great aesthetic taste. But an artist in the purest, most sincere meaning of the word, someone who sees the world differently, and expresses that through every medium available to him. Let's start with something most people don't even know about, his photography. Under the name Vanti, a combination of his stage name V and the photographer he admires, Anti-Kovic, Taehyung creates black and white photographs that go far beyond being visually pretty. His photos tell stories. There's a quietness to them. Questions that don't need answers. Ordinary moments captured in a way that makes you stop and ask yourself, wait, what am I actually feeling right now? And this wasn't a project his label asked him to do. He does it because he genuinely loves photography. Because it belongs to him in a way that very few things in his life actually do. Then there's his wider passion for visual art. Taehyung idolizes Van Gogh. He's studied the painting styles of artists from across history. When he has free time in a foreign city, his first instinct isn't shopping or sightseeing, it's museums. Not because cameras are following him, Because he actually wants to be there. There's a behind-the-scenes clip of Taehyung standing silently in front of a painting, alone, completely still, fully absorbed. Nobody asked him to pose. Nobody needed a reaction. He was just there, with the work. Present. And that one small moment tells you more about who he actually is than 1,000 promotional photo shoots ever could. But the fullest expression of his artistry came with Layover. His debut solo album, released in 2023, is nothing like what most people expect from a K-pop idol. There's no beat engineered to go viral. No hook calculated for chart performance. Layover is jazz-infused, gentle, and deeply introspective. It feels like a private letter you accidentally discovered in the drawer of someone you love deeply. Taehyung contributed directly to the writing and production throughout. And you can feel that. Every song feels like an extension of his soul, not a product, but a confession. Because when something is created from an honest place, it moves beyond genre. It moves beyond language. It speaks directly to something you feel before you even understand why. Okay, this is genuinely my favorite part of this entire video. And I'm pretty confident that after this, you'll immediately understand why people get so completely hooked on Taehyung's content. Here's the thing. If you only ever saw photos of Taehyung, you'd probably assume he's the cool, quiet, mysterious type. Someone who speaks in carefully measured sentences, moves elegantly, maintains a perfectly composed expression at all times. Then you watch a variety show with him in it. And within the first 5 minutes, every single one of those assumptions falls apart, replaced by something far more entertaining and far more endearing than you ever expected. Kim Taehyung is one of the most genuinely unpredictable human beings ever caught on camera. And it's not a performance. It's not a persona crafted by a management team to make him seem relatable. It's just him. In one interview, he'll give an answer so deep and philosophical about what fame actually means, about art, about what happiness looks like, that the interviewer visibly pauses, not quite sure how to respond. Then literally a second later, he'll say something completely random and disconnected from everything, and everyone in the room completely falls apart laughing. Korean culture has a term for a personality like his, 4D. Someone who operates in their own dimension entirely. Whose way of thinking, reacting, and seeing the world runs at a slightly different frequency from everyone around them. Not in a negative way, just in a way that makes people around them consistently entertained, consistently surprised, and never once bored. And here's what's most remarkable. There is no gap between Taehyung on the Grammy stage and Taehyung laughing his head off somewhere behind the scenes. He's the same in a Celine photoshoot as he is going live at midnight to casually talk about his pets. He's consistent. Always the same person. In an industry where almost everyone's public image is carefully engineered and meticulously maintained, that kind of authenticity is genuinely rare. And without people even realizing it, it's one of the main reasons they simply cannot stop following him. Now we get to the part that might make at least some of you feel something quietly warm somewhere in your chest. Taehyung loves people. In a way that is very real, very concrete, and completely impossible to fake. Start with the people closest to him. His friendship with Jimin, which has been going for more than a decade, stretching back to when they were both young trainees who arrived in Seoul with enormous dreams and very little else, is one of the most genuinely moving friendships this industry has ever produced. Not because they're constantly performing it for cameras, but because it feels real. There's a mutual support there, a quiet looking out for each other, that doesn't need to be announced in order to be felt. Taehyung is the kind of person who remembers small details. Who shows up unexpectedly with a friend's favorite food on a hard day. Who sits beside someone who looks exhausted and just stays there, without saying much, because sometimes being quietly present says more than anything else could. Then there's his relationship with ARMY. He's not the kind of idol who loves his fanbase as a concept. Late-night live streams happen not because of a scheduled commitment, but because he misses people. Because for him, talking with ARMY isn't an obligation he fulfills, it's a part of his actual life that he genuinely enjoys. There was a moment at a fan sign event that cameras happened to capture, Taehyung spontaneously reaching over and holding the hand of a fan who was crying. No dramatic words. No prepared lines. Just a hand held quietly. And that small gesture was watched millions of times, not because it was theatrical, but because it felt so completely, unmistakably human. But the moment that most clearly reveals who Taehyung is beneath everything else, the fame, the aesthetic, the artistry, is the story of his grandmother. He has always been openly and tenderly loving toward her. She was a figure who shaped so much of who he became. When she passed away, Taehyung shared his grief completely unfiltered. Nothing held back. Nothing polished for the sake of a public image. And in that moment, even people who had never been fans, even people who had never cared about K-pop, saw him and felt something real. Because losing someone we love is a universal language that needs no translation. Finally, we can't close this out without talking about Taehyung's real-world impact, the kind that extends far beyond K-pop. Celine, the Parisian house founded in 1945 and one of the most exclusive luxury brands in existence, chose Taehyung as their global brand ambassador. And that wasn't a decision made simply because of his follower count. They saw something in him that very few people actually have, the ability to wear clothes in a way that feels like a genuine extension of his personality rather than a walking advertisement. Every outfit he puts on immediately becomes a reference point for millions of people. But not because he's chasing trends. He creates his own direction, and trends adjust themselves to follow. But the impact that matters most, and gets spoken about least, is how he's shifted the way young people see themselves. Taehyung wore a skirt on an international stage. He wears colors conventional expectations would place outside the acceptable range for men. He cries openly in public without feeling any need to apologize for it. He expresses gentleness, vulnerability, and emotional depth, with his head up, without a trace of shame. And instead of being criticized, he inspired millions of people to quietly think, I'm actually allowed to be myself. There's nothing wrong with being sensitive. With having a depth that not everyone will immediately understand. That's not a fashion trend. That's a shift in how people see themselves. And a shift like that lasts far longer than any chart position or trophy shelf ever could. So after everything we've covered today, what is the actual answer to the question this video started with? Why does everyone fall in love with Taehyung? The answer has nothing to do with his face. Nothing to do with his voice or his dancing or his Celine campaigns or his Grammy appearances. The answer is that he reminds us, without ever saying it directly, just by the way he moves through the world, that being fully yourself, with all your depth and weirdness and tenderness intact, is the most compelling thing you can offer anyone. In an era where everyone is racing to build the most perfect, most polished version of themselves, Taehyung just lives. Honestly. Fully. Without apology. And people feel that. All over the world. In every language. From every background imaginable. He's not trying to make anyone fall in love with him. He's just living his life, genuinely, completely, sincerely. And somehow, all of us ended up here anyway. Already fallen. Already in love. Maybe that's his greatest art form of all. Not photography. Not music. But simply the way he chooses to be a human being. Alright, that's everything for today. If you made it all the way to this moment, thank you, genuinely. Drop a comment and tell me, what was the first moment you saw Taehyung and felt something shift? Like the video if it meant something to you, subscribe if you haven't already, and share it with one friend who doesn't know Taehyung yet, because they deserve this kind of thing in their life too. See you in the next one. Purple Heart.